I need to make love? Don't move or it'll hurt more. I'll be quick, he whispered. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Emma sat at the corner of the bustling New York restaurant, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her second-hand dress. The warm glow of the restaurant lights reflected off the glossy window beside her, but the comfort of the space didn't match how out of place she felt. Her shoes were scuffed, her hair hastily pulled back, and she couldn't stop comparing herself to the polished crowd surrounding her. You've got this, she whispered to herself, glancing nervously at her phone screen to check the table number again. Table 7, she muttered. Her heart was racing now. The nerve she'd felt earlier had turned into a knot in her stomach. She adjusted her dress, wiped her palms on her lap, and stood up to approach the table. She took a deep breath and walked over to the man sitting alone. He was well-dressed, his dark hair neatly styled, engrossed in his phone. Hi, you must be Kevin, she said, offering a shy smile. The man looked up at her with a puzzled expression. He blinked, startled, before he seemed to process the situation. Hi Emma, he replied, clearly taken aback. His voice sounded softer than expected. Emma, assuming his confusion was due to shyness, slid into the seat across from him. She tried to make herself comfortable, though she could feel her hands fidgeting under the table. I know this is awkward, blind dates are weird, right? She laughed nervously. Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us. The man paused, glancing at his phone for a brief moment. Emma took this as his cue to prepare for the conversation. He set the phone down and smiled faintly. Right, blind dates are something else. She laughed, feeling more at ease. Tell me about yourself. Jenny said you worked in tech? Like coding and apps and stuff, she asked, eager to keep the conversation flowing. Something like that, he said, his smile widening slightly, though there was a hint of hesitation in his eyes. I work in tech. Emma felt a little embarrassed but continued. I'm a waitress, she said. Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills, well, most of them anyway. Enough about me, though, what about you? What do you do in tech? She was rambling, but the man seemed genuinely interested. As they talked, the conversation took a surprising turn. She found herself laughing more than she had in ages. There was something about him, something warm and genuine beneath his quiet exterior, that made her feel more comfortable, even though she was sure she was out of her league. They continued to chat, and Emma shared stories about her life, her struggles to make rent, her dream of one day opening an art studio. He listened, not with the polished indifference of the wealthy, but with an authentic interest. You're not what I expected, she said suddenly, her voice tinged with a mix of surprise and admiration. He raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Well, Jenny said you were a bit reserved, she said, but you're actually easy to talk to. He chuckled softly. You're easy to talk to, too. Just as Emma was about to ask more about his work, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the message, and her heart sank. It was from Jenny. Hey Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin. Emma's face turned bright red as realization hit. She wasn't sitting with Kevin. You're not Kevin, are you? She asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. The man's smile faltered, and for a moment, there was an awkward silence between them. No, he admitted, his voice filled with guilt. I'm sorry, I should have said something earlier. Emma stood up abruptly, her embarrassment overwhelming her. I'm so sorry, I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing, she said quickly, grabbing her coat and heading toward the door. She couldn't believe she'd just had an entire conversation with a complete stranger thinking he was someone else. The man stood up as well, reaching out as if to stop her, but he hesitated. "Emma, it's okay?" He called after her, but she was already gone, rushing out into the cold night. The restaurant's warm glow faded behind her as she stepped outside, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Meanwhile, Liam Parker, the man she had mistakenly spoken to, watched her leave with a strange sense of regret. He had initially planned to correct her the moment she sat down, but something about her, a certain sincerity in her nervousness, made him hesitate. He couldn't explain it, but he wanted to see her again. Would he? He wasn't sure, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he would. That night, as he sat in his penthouse suite, staring at the New York skyline, his thoughts kept drifting back to Emma. There was something about her, something real in her eyes, that made him wonder if he could find that same authenticity in a world that often felt so fake. As he thought about their conversation, his phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. "Meeting with Rothman is cancelled. What's next on the agenda?" Liam sighed, setting the phone aside. "Next," he whispered to himself. "Maybe I should go find her." And with that thought, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had just started, something important. He didn't know it yet, but the next chapter of his life was about to begin. After Emma rushed out of the restaurant, she could barely breathe. The cold air outside seemed to numb her face as she walked quickly down the street, trying to get as far away from the situation as possible. She could still hear the sound of her heart racing in her ears, but more than the physical rush, it was the embarrassment that burned in her chest. She had made a fool of herself in front of a complete stranger, thinking he was someone else. It wasn't just that, it was the strange connection she felt to him, the way his calm demeanor had made her feel seen in a way no one ever had. She had walked away, but she could still feel his presence, like a shadow trailing behind her. Meanwhile, Liam stood there in the restaurant, watching the door close behind Emma, a strange unease settling in his stomach. What had just happened? He wasn't sure, but something about the encounter felt important, like it had changed something inside him. He had been about to correct her, to let her know she had made a mistake, but then he hesitated. The way she looked at him, the sincerity in her voice, it made him want to know more about her. But now, she was gone. Liam sat back down at his table, his mind racing. Why was he so affected by a brief interaction with a woman he barely knew? He had met hundreds of people in his life, yet something about Emma felt different. He had always been surrounded by people who wanted something from him, money, connections, or power, but Emma had just spoken to him like he was a regular person. She didn't care about his wealth or status, and that was refreshing. It was almost like she didn't even see him as the millionaire he was. He took out his phone, and for a moment, just stared at it. He could text her. It would be easy enough to find her number, his assistant could track it down. But no, he wanted something real. Not just some superficial connection. He had spent his life building an empire, but in the end, it had all felt hollow. Maybe this was his chance for something different, something genuine. He stood up, made a decision, and began to walk toward the door. The next day, Emma was at work, her mind still replaying the night before. She couldn't stop thinking about the man she had mistaken for Kevin. What was his name again? She couldn't even remember. He had seemed so normal, and yet, there was something so out of place about him. She had shared things with him that she hadn't told anyone in a long time, about her struggles, her dreams, and how she felt about everything. She hadn't expected to feel that comfortable with a stranger. As she refocused on her duties, she saw Jenny walk in, waving as she approached. "How was your date?" she asked teasingly. Emma forced a smile, trying to brush off the awkwardness. "It was fine, just a little unexpected." Jenny raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. "What do you mean?" Emma hesitated for a moment before answering. "Well, it turns out I sat at the wrong table. I thought he was Kevin, but he wasn't." Jenny's eyes widened in surprise. "Wait, so you had a whole conversation with a complete stranger?" Emma nodded, her face turning a little redder. "Yeah, and now I feel ridiculous. I just ran out of there before he could say anything." Jenny laughed, clearly enjoying Emma's discomfort. Well, at least you didn't make a bigger fool of yourself. What did he say? Did he try to correct you? Emma shook her head. He didn't. He just smiled and went along with it. He was really nice about it, actually. Jenny smirked. That's kind of weird. But at least he wasn't rude, right? Emma sighed, nodding. Yeah, he was nice. But I'm sure he'll never want to see me again after that. Later that evening, as Emma sat on her couch, scrolling through her phone, she got a message. It was from an unknown number. Hi, Emma, this is Liam. I was the guy you sat with at the restaurant last night. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe. Emma stared at the message for a long moment, unsure of how to respond. She had thought about him all day, but now that he was reaching out, she wasn't sure if she was ready to face the awkwardness again. But then again, something in his message felt sincere, and she couldn't deny the curiosity that bubbled up inside her. She smiled to herself as she typed a reply. Okay, coffee sounds nice. When? The next day, they met at a small coffee shop, far from the fancy restaurant where they had first met. When Emma walked in, she saw Liam sitting at a table near the window, looking much less formal than he had the night before. He was dressed casually, in a simple sweater and jeans, and there was a relaxed quality about him now that made her feel more at ease. She waved, and he looked up, his smile warm and inviting. Hi, Emma, he said, his voice gentle. Thanks for agreeing to meet me again. Of course, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. I figured I owed you an apology for running out on you like that. Liam waved his hand, dismissing the apology. No need to apologize. Honestly, it was kind of funny. Emma laughed, relieved by his easygoing attitude. Yeah, I guess it was. But I didn't expect you to actually text me. I thought I'd embarrass myself enough to last a lifetime. Liam smiled, a hint of mystery in his eyes. I don't know, I kind of liked your honesty. It was refreshing. You're not like anyone I've met before. Emma felt a warm rush in her chest at his words. Well, I'm definitely not what you're used to, she said, feeling a little bashful. Their conversation flowed easily, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was connecting with someone in a way that didn't feel forced. They talked about everything, her dreams of opening an art studio, his work in tech, and the struggles they both faced. By the end of the coffee date, Emma realized she didn't feel embarrassed anymore. She felt something else, something that was slowly starting to grow inside her, something she hadn't expected. As they said goodbye outside the coffee shop, Liam looked at her with a look that made her heart flutter. I'll see you again, Emma. I promise. And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving Emma standing there, wondering if this was the start of something she hadn't even known she was looking for. It had been a few days since Emma and Liam's coffee date, but the feeling of their connection hadn't faded. In fact, it had only grown stronger, lingering in the back of her mind as she went about her daily routine. It was strange, she thought, how quickly someone could come into your life and make you feel like you'd known them forever. She hadn't expected to see him again so soon, but she couldn't deny that she was excited. She'd spent the last few days overthinking their conversation, replaying every word, every laugh, wondering what he was thinking. But the reality of her life quickly pulled her back. She had a shift at the diner to get to, bills to pay, and dreams she was still fighting to keep alive. Liam, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about Emma. The more he thought about her, the more he realized how rare it was to meet someone who didn't see him as just the CEO of a successful tech company. For once, someone had treated him like a regular person, and that was something he hadn't realized he'd been missing. He wasn't sure where things were going, but he knew he wanted to see her again. He found himself daydreaming about their conversations, the way she spoke so openly. The way she smiled at him despite her nervousness. It made him want to protect her, to help her with her dreams. A few days later, Liam couldn't take it anymore. He decided to surprise her. He picked up his phone and texted her, "Hey, Emma. I know you're probably busy, but I was wondering if you'd like to grab dinner tonight. My treat, of course. I've been thinking about our last conversation, and I'd love to continue it. He hesitated for a moment before hitting send, hoping she wouldn't think he was moving too fast. But he knew he had to at least try. When Emma's phone buzzed, she almost didn't check it. She had been running around all day, getting things done at work, and the last thing she expected was a message from Liam. But when she saw his name pop up on her screen, her heart skipped a beat. She quickly read his text and smiled to herself. She hadn't expected him to reach out again so soon, but she was thrilled. She thought about it for a second and then typed back, "Dinner sounds great. What time?" The reply was almost instant, "How about 7? I'll pick you up." That evening, Emma was a bundle of nerves. She stood in front of her closet, wondering what to wear. She hadn't been on many dates, and none had felt quite like this one. She wanted to look good, but she didn't want to overdo it. She finally settled on a simple, yet elegant dress, nothing too fancy, just something that made her feel confident. She checked her phone one last time to make sure the time was still set. As she stepped out of her apartment, she couldn't help but feel a little giddy. She was actually excited to see him again. When Liam arrived to pick her up, Emma was waiting outside her building, a small smile on her face as she waved at him. Liam was dressed casually, but he looked good, comfortable and relaxed, with his sleeves rolled up, showing a glimpse of the tattoo on his wrist. He stepped out of the car and walked over to her, his usual confident demeanor softened by the warmth in his eyes. "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice light but sincere. "You look beautiful." Emma blushed, feeling the familiar flutter in her chest. "Thanks, Liam. You look good too," she said, trying to hide her nervousness. They exchanged a brief, comfortable silence before Liam opened the door to the car for her. "Shall we?" he asked, with a playful smile. Emma nodded and got in, the excitement building with every passing second. Dinner was a relaxed, intimate affair. They chose a cozy, low-key restaurant that wasn't too far from Emma's place. As they sat down, the conversation flowed easily between them. They talked about everything, her dreams of opening an art studio, his love for coding and technology, their favorite books, and even their childhood memories. The more they spoke, the more they realized how much they had in common, how easy it was to talk to each other. It was refreshing. Emma had never felt this way on a date before. She had always been nervous, always second-guessed herself. But with Liam, it felt natural. As the night went on, Emma started to relax, enjoying the simplicity of the evening. She could feel the tension from earlier in the day melting away, replaced by a growing sense of comfort and trust. Liam was attentive, asking questions, but also listening intently to what she had to say. She hadn't realized how much she missed having someone truly listen to her until now. It felt like she had finally found someone who understood her. And with every moment that passed, she found herself liking him more. As they finished their meal, Liam looked across the table at her, his expression soft but serious. "Emma, I know this is a bit sudden, but I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I want to keep seeing you. I don't know where this is going, but I think there's something special here. What do you think?" Emma felt her heart race at his words. She hadn't expected him to be so upfront, but something about it made her smile. She felt the same way. "I think I'd like that too," she said, her voice steady, but her hands were shaking slightly under the table. Liam's smile widened as he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "Good," he said softly. "Because I'm not letting you go that easily." The night ended with a simple kiss on her cheek as Liam dropped her off at her apartment. "I'll see you again soon," he promised, his voice gentle and full of sincerity. Emma smiled and nodded, her heart fluttering. "I look forward to it." As she walked into her apartment, she couldn't stop smiling. This was only the beginning, but it felt like something real had started to grow between them. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt hopeful about the future. It had been a week since Emma and Liam's dinner date, and the connection between them had only grown stronger. They had spent several more evenings together, each time feeling more comfortable around one another, and each time, Emma found herself feeling more drawn to him. She had never felt so open and at ease with someone, especially someone like Liam, wealthy, confident, and with a life that seemed so far removed from her own. But somehow, despite their differences, they were finding common ground. She had never been one to believe in love at first sight, but now, she wasn't so sure anymore. She had started to care about him, more than she expected. As the days passed, Liam made it clear that he wanted more. He would send her sweet texts, asking about her day, or suggest last-minute meetups when he found himself with a free hour. They talked every night, sharing everything from personal dreams to childhood memories, and with each conversation, Emma felt her walls slowly come down. She had always kept her guard up, afraid of getting hurt, but with Liam, it was different. He made her feel safe, valued, and most importantly, seen. One afternoon, Emma was working her shift at the diner when she saw a familiar face walk through the door. It was Liam, looking just as handsome as ever, but today, he wasn't in a suit or looking like the CEO she had come to know. He was dressed casually in a t-shirt and jeans, a look she rarely saw him in. Emma's heart skipped a beat when she saw him approach the counter. She quickly wiped her hands on her apron before walking over to greet him. "Hey, what are you doing here?" she asked, trying to sound casual, though the butterflies in her stomach betrayed her calm demeanor. Liam smiled, his eyes twinkling. "Just thought I'd stop by and surprise you. You're always working so hard, thought you could use a break." Emma felt her face flush, but she smiled back. "Well, I'm glad you did," she said, her voice softening. "What can I get you?" Liam didn't sit down, though. Instead, he leaned against the counter, watching her with a soft expression. "Actually, I was wondering if you'd like to do something tonight. A small surprise for you." Emma raised an eyebrow, curious. "A surprise? What's that about?" He chuckled. "I can't give away all the details just yet, but trust me, you'll enjoy it. I promise it's not anything fancy." Emma was intrigued, though she still wasn't entirely sure what he was planning. "All right, I'm in," she said, giving him a playful smile. "You're lucky I don't have any shifts left after this." Liam grinned, his eyes lighting up. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. Dress casually, though." That evening, Emma found herself standing in front of her closet, trying to decide what to wear. She wasn't sure what Liam had planned, but he had specifically told her to dress casually. After a moment of indecision, she settled on a simple pair of jeans and a soft sweater, feeling comfortable but still put together. When the doorbell rang, she quickly checked herself in the mirror one last time, taking a deep breath before answering the door. Liam stood outside, holding a small bouquet of flowers in his hand. "For you," he said, smiling warmly as he handed them to her. Emma took them, her smile widening. "Thank you," she said, surprised by the gesture. "You didn't have to do that." Liam shrugged, looking a little shy. "I wanted to." His gaze softened, and he added, "You deserve it." They got into Liam's car, and as they drove through the city, Emma couldn't help but notice how easy it was to be with him. The tension she had felt during their first few dates had completely melted away. It felt natural now, like they were just two people spending time together, not a wealthy man and a struggling waitress. She looked out the window, feeling a sense of calm wash over her as the lights of the city flashed by. After a short drive, they arrived at a small, cozy park on the outskirts of the city. The lights were dim, and the air was cool, but the atmosphere felt peaceful. Liam got out of the car and opened the door for her, offering her his hand as she stepped out. "I thought we could take a walk," he said. "There's something I want to show you." They walked side by side, the quiet hum of the city in the distance. Liam led her down a path lined with trees, their leaves rustling gently in the breeze. Emma's mind was racing, wondering what this was all about. But she didn't ask, choosing instead to enjoy the moment with him. Eventually, they reached a small clearing, where a wooden bench was positioned perfectly to view the city skyline. Liam sat down first, patting the spot next to him. "Come on, sit with me," he said, his voice soft. Emma hesitated for a moment, but then she joined him, settling onto the bench. The city lights sparkled in the distance, casting a warm glow over everything. For a moment, they both sat in silence, the peacefulness of the scene settling in. Then, Liam turned to her, his expression serious. "Emma, I know we haven't known each other for long, but I can't deny the way I feel about you. I like you, a lot. More than I've liked anyone in a long time." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had been feeling the same way, but hearing it from him made it feel real. "I like you too, Liam," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just not sure where this is going." Liam smiled, his eyes full of warmth. "I'm not asking for anything crazy. I just want to see where this goes. I'm in no rush, but I think we have something special here." He took a deep breath, his voice gentle but firm. "And I'm willing to take that chance if you are." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with emotion. She had never been one to take chances, but with Liam, something about him made her want to. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's see where this goes." As they sat there, side by side, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, she had found something worth fighting for. And for the first time in a long time, she was willing to take that chance. It had been a few weeks since that night in the park, and Emma still couldn't shake the way Liam had looked at her when he confessed his feelings. It felt like everything had shifted between them in that moment, as if the walls they had both built up had come down, and they were finally allowing themselves to be vulnerable. Since then, their relationship had blossomed in a way neither of them had expected. They spent more time together, laughing, talking about their lives, and discovering just how much they truly enjoyed each other's company. For Emma, it was like living in a dream. She had never felt so seen, so understood, and it was all because of him. But as things were progressing, Emma couldn't help but feel a lingering uncertainty. She had never imagined herself dating someone like Liam, a wealthy, successful CEO. She had always thought that people like him had everything they could ever need, and that someone like her, someone struggling to make ends meet, would never fit into that world. Even though Liam never made her feel out of place, she still questioned whether she was good enough for him. Would he eventually grow tired of her modest lifestyle, her humble beginnings? These thoughts crept into her mind when she was alone, but she pushed them aside, telling herself to enjoy the present. One evening, Liam picked her up for dinner at one of his favorite restaurants, a luxurious, high-end place that Emma could only describe as out of her league. As they walked in, the staff greeted Liam like an old friend, and Emma felt the familiar sense of discomfort rise in her chest. She tried to push it away, reminding herself that she was here with Liam, not to impress anyone else. "Relax," Liam said, noticing her tense posture as they sat down at a secluded corner table. "You don't have to worry about any of this. I just wanted to share something special with you." Emma smiled, though the knot in her stomach remained. It wasn't the restaurant that made her uneasy, it was the feeling that she didn't belong. Liam reached across the table and took her hand in his touch warm and reassuring. "You're exactly where you're supposed to be," he said, his voice soft, as if reading her thoughts. Emma looked into his eyes, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the evening went on, Emma found herself relaxing. Liam's presence had a calming effect on her, and as they talked, she started to forget about the world around them. She laughed at his jokes, listened intently to his stories, and enjoyed the simplicity of being with him. As they finished their meal, Liam looked at her with a more serious expression. "Emma, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about," he said, his voice a little more hesitant than usual. "I don't want to scare you, but I need to know if you feel the same way about us as I do." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. She had been wondering about this moment, wondering when they would reach the point where they had to decide whether they were truly on the same page. She wasn't sure what to say, but she knew she couldn't hide her feelings any longer. "Liam," she began, her voice steady but vulnerable, "I care about you. I've never met anyone like you, and I don't want to lose that. But I also can't ignore the fact that we come from such different worlds. Liam listened quietly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know," he said softly. "I'm not blind to that. But the thing is, Emma, I don't care about your background. I care about who you are, what you bring to my life. I care about you. The real you." His words sent a wave of warmth through her, and Emma felt the tension in her chest ease for the first time. She had been so afraid of their differences, but Liam wasn't worried about them at all. He just wanted her. For the first time since they started seeing each other, Emma let herself believe in the possibility of something real between them. She had always thought that love had to be hard work, that it had to come with constant compromise and sacrifice. But with Liam, everything felt effortless. It was as though they had both found something they had been searching for without even realizing it. The night ended with a promise to see each other again soon. Liam kissed her lightly on the cheek before driving her home, and Emma walked inside, her mind racing with the emotions of the evening. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid of it. She was ready to take a leap of faith, to believe that love could be simple, that maybe, just maybe, she had found the person who was meant to be by her side. As she lay in bed later that night, staring up at the ceiling, Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't consumed by self-doubt or insecurity. She was just happy. And that happiness was all thanks to Liam. The days following their dinner date felt like a dream for Emma. She had never imagined that something as simple as sharing a coffee with someone could evolve into this much. It wasn't just about the luxury or the dinners at fancy restaurants, it was the little things, how Liam always remembered the small details she mentioned, how he made her feel seen and appreciated in ways she had never experienced before. Yet, as the days went by, Emma began to sense that there was something Liam wasn't telling her. It was subtle, but she noticed the brief moments when his usual confidence would slip, replaced by something deeper, something guarded. She had learned from her own struggles to hide her insecurities, but she knew when someone else was doing the same. One night, Liam invited Emma to a small event, a charity gala for one of his tech company's community projects. Emma had been to a few events in her life, but this was a different world. The venue was nothing short of grand, people in elegant suits and dresses mingled, laughing and chatting, while waitstaff in crisp uniforms moved silently between them, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres. As soon as they entered, Emma felt like an outsider. She had never felt so out of place, so much like she didn't belong. Liam, however, seemed right at home. He moved through the crowd with ease, greeting people, shaking hands, and exchanging pleasantries like it was second nature. She walked beside him, her hand in his, trying to ignore the discomfort crawling up her spine. Liam seemed to notice her unease and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. Emma forced a smile. "Yeah, just not used to all this glamour," she replied, gesturing around the room. "You look great," Liam said, looking at her with genuine admiration. She smiled, but the truth was, she felt small in comparison to the well-dressed crowd surrounding them. Liam led her to a quieter area of the event, away from the noise. They found a secluded spot by a large window, where they could still see the lights of the city twinkling outside. "I know this is a lot," Liam said, his voice softer now, "but I wanted you to see this part of my world. It's not all glitz and glam, but it's what I do." Emma nodded, trying to focus on his words instead of the overwhelming feeling that she didn't belong here. "I understand," she said, her voice steady. "But I don't know if I'm ready for all of this." Liam looked at her carefully, as though trying to read her thoughts. "You don't have to be. You're here because I wanted you here, not because of anything else." Emma looked up at him, the sincerity in his eyes making her heart race. She believed him. She did. But somewhere deep inside, a nagging feeling was growing. She had been trying so hard to fit into his world, to be the person he wanted her to be, but was it enough? Would it ever be enough? The evening passed quickly, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As Liam introduced her to more of his colleagues and clients, she tried to act natural, to smile and engage, but her mind kept drifting back to her insecurities. She wasn't sure if Liam noticed, but she couldn't help feeling like she was on display, as though her every move was being scrutinized. When the evening came to a close, Liam took her hand once more, leading her out of the venue and into the car. They sat in silence as the car sped down the city streets, the lights flashing by in a blur. "You did great tonight," Liam said, breaking the silence. Emma nodded, but she didn't feel like she had. She felt exhausted, like she was holding up a facade. "It was fine," she said, her voice quieter than she intended. I don't know. It's a lot to take in." Liam glanced at her, his expression softening. "I get it. I know it's a big jump. But I'm not asking you to change who you are for me, Emma. I just want you to be yourself. You don't have to try to fit into any world except the one you're comfortable in." His words, though comforting, still left Emma with that familiar feeling of uncertainty. She wasn't sure how to bridge the gap between the world she knew and the world Liam lived in, but she was starting to realize that maybe she didn't have to. Maybe the person she was enough. But the fear of losing him, of not measuring up, lingered like a shadow in her mind. The car ride ended too soon, and Liam walked her to her door. He turned to face her, his eyes searching hers for something. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. Emma looked up at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't okay. She wasn't sure of anything anymore. But she didn't want to say that, not to him, not when he had been nothing but kind. "I'm fine," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Just a lot on my mind." Liam nodded, but his eyes didn't leave hers. "You know you can talk to me, right? About anything." She nodded, but the words felt heavy in her throat. "I know," she said, forcing a smile. He kissed her forehead gently. "I'll see you soon." As Emma closed the door behind her, she leaned against it, closing her eyes for a moment. She felt conflicted. She wanted to believe in what she had with Liam, wanted to trust that things could work out between them. But the fear of not being enough, of losing herself in his world, was too strong. She wanted to tell him how she felt, to be honest, but she wasn't ready to face those emotions yet. Not when everything felt so uncertain. All she knew was that she had never felt this alive, this connected to someone before. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure what the future would bring, but she knew one thing, she wasn't ready to walk away just yet. The days following the charity gala felt like a turning point for Emma. She couldn't stop replaying the events in her mind, the way she had felt out of place, the awkwardness of trying to fit into a world that felt so far from her own, and the brief but important conversation she had with Liam afterward. He had been kind, understanding, but Emma still couldn't shake the feeling that she was too different from him. She was just a waitress. And he was a successful CEO. What could they possibly have in common in the long run? Could they really make it work? These questions ran through her mind constantly, and with each passing day, the doubts began to feel heavier. Liam, on the other hand, had been completely unaware of Emma's internal struggle. He had noticed that she seemed distant since the gala, but he chalked it up to her being overwhelmed by the event. He had been looking forward to spending more time with her, to getting to know her better, but he could tell something had shifted. He wanted to talk to her about it, to ask if everything was okay, but he wasn't sure how to approach it without making things worse. Every time he thought about bringing it up, he hesitated, afraid that he might say the wrong thing and push her further away. It wasn't until one evening, a few days later, that the chance finally came. Liam had invited Emma to a quiet dinner at his apartment. It wasn't a fancy restaurant or a high-end venue, just a simple meal at his place, where they could relax and talk. Emma hesitated at first, feeling the familiar anxiety creeping back in, but she finally agreed. When she arrived, Liam greeted her with a warm smile and a glass of wine in hand. "I hope you're hungry," he said, leading her to the dining table where a simple meal of pasta and salad was waiting. Emma smiled, grateful for the gesture. "It looks great," she said, taking a seat. They sat down, the conversation flowing easily at first as they ate, but Emma could feel the weight of the silence between them growing. Liam's earlier cheerful demeanor had faded, replaced with a quiet intensity. She couldn't help but wonder what was on his mind. As they finished their meal, Liam set his fork down and turned to face her. "Emma, there's something I need to ask you," he said, his voice serious. Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. She had a feeling she knew where this was going, but she couldn't bring herself to say anything. Liam reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. "I've noticed you've been a little distant lately," he continued, his eyes searching hers. "I don't know what's going on, but I need to know if something's wrong. If you're not feeling this, if you need space, I just want you to be honest with me." Emma felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. She had been holding back, unsure of how to voice her concerns, but now, in the comfort of Liam's apartment, with his hand holding hers, she knew it was time to open up. She took a deep breath, her voice shaking slightly as she spoke. "Liam, it's not that I don't like you, I do. I really do," she said, looking down at their intertwined hands. "But I've been feeling like I don't belong in your world. You have everything, success, wealth, power. And I'm just me. I don't know if I'm good enough for you." Liam's expression softened, and he squeezed her hand. "Emma, you don't have to be anything but yourself," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I don't care about the money, the power, or any of that. All I care about is you. You're the one I want to be with, not because of anything you do or don't do, but because of who you are. You don't have to change for me." Emma looked up at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that he saw her for who she truly was, not just as someone who didn't fit into his world. But the fear still lingered, gnawing at her. "I'm just scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared that I'll never be enough for you. Scared that I'll never be able to keep up with your life." Liam leaned in slightly, his gaze soft but steady. "You don't have to keep up with anything. I'm not asking you to fit into a mold. I'm asking you to be with me. Just you. That's enough." His words, simple but powerful, made Emma's heart swell. For the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, she was enough just as she was. She didn't need to change or become something she wasn't. She just needed to be herself. As the evening wore on, they talked more openly, sharing their fears, their dreams, and their pasts. It felt like a weight had been lifted off Emma's shoulders, and she could finally breathe again. By the time Liam walked her to the door, she felt more certain than ever about where this was going. Liam wasn't asking her to change, and maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to worry about not being enough for him. As she left his apartment that night, Emma smiled to herself, feeling lighter than she had in days. She had been afraid to open up, afraid of what might happen if she did. But now, she realized that sometimes, the hardest part was just being honest. And as she thought about Liam's words, she knew that they were both ready to face whatever the future held, together. It had been a few weeks since Emma had finally opened up to Liam about her insecurities, and things between them had only gotten stronger. The weight of her doubts had lifted, and in their place, she began to feel a sense of peace she hadn't known in a long time. They continued to spend time together, building their connection in ways that felt natural and easy. Every day, she found herself falling deeper for him, but still, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she wasn't the only one with something to hide. Liam had been more open with her than anyone else had been. He had shared pieces of his life, his childhood, and even the challenges he faced in running a multi-million-dollar company. But there was still something he hadn't told her. She could sense it, the way his gaze would linger on certain things, or the way he'd hesitate when it came to talking about his past relationships. Emma had tried to push those thoughts aside, telling herself that if Liam wasn't ready to share everything, it was okay. She had her own fears, after all, and wasn't sure she was ready to be fully vulnerable herself. One evening, Liam invited Emma over to his apartment for dinner. This time, it was just the two of them, no grand restaurants, no charity galas, just a quiet, intimate evening. When Emma arrived, she found him in the kitchen, preparing a simple meal. The scene was so different from the opulence of their previous encounters, and it made her heart swell. There was something about him, something real and grounded, that she had come to cherish. "Hey, you," Liam said as he turned around, smiling when he saw her. "I hope you're hungry." Emma laughed, stepping into the apartment. "I'm starving," she replied, taking off her jacket and hanging it by the door. They sat down to eat, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt completely at ease. There were no expectations, no hidden agendas, just the two of them enjoying each other's company. As they ate, the conversation turned more serious, and Emma found herself opening up about things she hadn't talked about in years. She told him about her dreams of opening an art studio, her struggles with balancing work and paying rent, and the uncertainty she often felt about her future. Liam listened intently, nodding and offering words of encouragement, but he didn't push her to share more than she was comfortable with. The more they talked, the more Emma realized just how much he cared for her, how much he was willing to listen and understand her, no matter how difficult it might be. When dinner was finished, they moved to the living room and sat on the couch, the soft glow of the lights outside casting a warm light through the windows. It was quiet for a moment, and then Liam turned to her, his expression serious but gentle. "Emma," he said softly, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you." Emma looked at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "I know I've been reserved about my past, and I don't want you to feel like I'm hiding things from you. The truth is, I've been hurt before. I've been in relationships where people didn't care about who I really was, just what I had to offer." Emma felt a twinge of understanding at his words. She had always known that Liam's life wasn't as perfect as it seemed, that his success came with its own set of challenges. She reached out and took his hand in hers, squeezing it gently. "I get it," she said, her voice soft. "I've been hurt too. I've made mistakes, I've been afraid of opening up because of the things I've been through. But with you, I don't feel afraid anymore." Liam looked at her with a mixture of surprise and gratitude in his eyes. "You're amazing, Emma. I've never met anyone like you." There was a long silence between them as they sat there, their hands still entwined. Emma could feel the depth of his words, the sincerity behind them. She wasn't sure where this was going, but she knew that she wanted to be a part of whatever it was. There was something undeniable between them, something that had only grown stronger with time. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in her life, she felt ready to face it. "Liam," she said, breaking the silence, "I'm not perfect. I don't know if I have all the answers, but I know that I want to try. I want to try with you." Liam smiled, his eyes shining with affection. "Then we'll try together," he said, his voice full of warmth and reassurance. "We'll take it one step at a time, and whatever happens, we'll face it together." For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had spent so much of her life carrying doubts, fears, and insecurities, but with Liam, she finally felt like she could breathe. He had shown her what it meant to trust, to let go of the past and move forward into the future. And for the first time, she didn't feel afraid to take that step. She was ready for whatever came next. As the night went on, they continued to talk, to share, and to laugh, and when Emma finally left, she felt like a new chapter had begun in her life. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but with Liam by her side, she was ready to find out. As weeks passed, Emma and Liam continued to grow closer, and the bond between them deepened. They spent countless hours together, both enjoying quiet nights in and exciting adventures out. Emma had started to open up more about her past, her hopes, and her dreams, and Liam was always there to listen, offering a sense of reassurance that made her feel safe. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was truly being seen, not just for her struggles, but for the person she was, her heart and her soul. Liam, on the other hand, found himself more and more captivated by Emma. He had never known someone who could make him laugh and think in the same breath. With every passing day, he realized how much he had been missing out on, and how much more he wanted to share with her. His life had been filled with meetings, deals, and public appearances, but with Emma, he found a different kind of joy. She didn't care about his status or wealth, she cared about him as a person, and that was something he hadn't had in a long time. One evening, as they sat on Liam's balcony overlooking the city skyline, he turned to her with a serious expression on his face. "Emma, there's something I've been thinking about," he said, his voice soft. Emma looked up at him, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. Liam took a deep breath and reached for her hand. "I've spent so much of my life focused on building something big, something that others would admire, but it's all been for the wrong reasons. I've realized that what matters most to me now is not my company or my success, it's you. I want you to be a part of my life, not just in the background, but by my side. I want to build something real, something meaningful, with you." Emma felt a rush of emotions at his words. She had always known that Liam was a man of great ambition, but hearing him say that he wanted her to be a part of his life, truly a part of it, filled her with a warmth she couldn't describe. She had feared for so long that their worlds were too different, that the life he led would be something she couldn't be a part of, but now she realized that Liam was willing to make room for her in it, without hesitation. "Liam," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "I want that too. I've never met anyone like you. You've shown me what it means to love and be loved, not just for what I do, but for who I am. I want to be with you, to build something real together." Liam smiled at her, his heart full. He had been waiting for the right moment, and now it felt like everything had fallen into place. "Then let's do it," he said, his voice filled with certainty. "Let's build something amazing together." The following weeks were filled with new adventures. They made plans for the future, dreaming together about what their life could look like. Emma had started to feel more confident in herself, knowing that Liam accepted her for who she was, and not just as someone who needed fixing. She had come to realize that she didn't need to change or fit into a mold. With Liam, she could be herself, and that was more than enough. One evening, as they were walking through the park, Liam stopped suddenly and turned to her. "Emma, I've been thinking about how far we've come, and how much I want this to last," he said, his tone serious but gentle. Emma's heart fluttered as she looked at him, waiting for him to continue. Liam took a deep breath, and with a soft smile, he said, "I want to make sure that you know how much you mean to me. I've never been so sure of anything in my life. Will you marry me?" Emma's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. She hadn't expected this, not tonight, not at this moment. She felt a mixture of joy and surprise rush through her. She had never imagined that she would be standing here, in a park with Liam, hearing these words. It felt like everything they had built together, everything they had been through, had led up to this one moment. "Yes," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam's face lit up with a smile that made Emma's heart skip a beat. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple, yet beautiful, ring. As he slid it onto her finger, Emma realized just how far they had come, from that awkward first meeting to this perfect moment. It wasn't about the wealth, the status, or the grand gestures, it was about the love they had built together, a love that was real and unwavering. As they embraced, Emma felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had spent so many years wondering if she was enough, wondering if she could ever fit into a world like Liam's. But now, standing there with him, she knew that she didn't need to fit into anyone else's world. She had created her own with him, a world where they could both be themselves, and that was more than she could have ever asked for. And as the night fell, with the city lights twinkling in the distance and the sound of their laughter echoing in the air, Emma knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The future was theirs to create, together.